your mother. Not only did the women essentially had turned him down, but they didn't return his phone calls. What do you say to men, or what do you say to women to help the shidduch scene, to help these situations? What do you say?
What do I say? I mean, I normally say to people that you cannot expect in your match anything near to 100%. I think for a little over 50%, that's really good. I do, as I've been saying earlier, emphasize to everybody that marriage doesn't mean you lock your souls together for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to eternity, because when people have been single, they like the benefits of single life, and it's hard to come towards somebody else. And if people will be willing to accept that that is quite legitimate, that the two parties are going to have their own space as well as being together, so not looking for 100% perfection, being willing to be flexible. Because there is a point where a person has to decide whether to go for something that is really not the best, or whether to say, well, I'm letting go of this and maybe it's never going to happen.
Oh, sorry, we're done yet. Done? Oh.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm curious, this idea of, I've often learned, imagine that when you meet a person that they're never going to change. You know, and we often go, if this happens and this changes and this changes, and so a while back I met a person who said, I'm very flexible, I'm very open to whatever, and he happened to be Bel Chassidish. And he says, I'm not your run-of-the-mill, but are you willing to, I said, I'm not willing to shave my head. He said, are you willing to wear a sheitel and a tichel over your sheitel? I didn't really answer that completely. I'm concerned with the concept of, are you willing to X, Y, Z? Can two different people actually function together? If I say, listen, my hair is covered completely, I'm completely frum, or is it a no-go, forget it, if you're two different groups? You know, I'm Baal Tshuva and he's...
You see, his problem is that in his community, if he has a wife that doesn't wear the tichel over the sheitel, he's going to look funny, and he's going to be ashamed of that. So he's upset about that.
He shouldn't be even communicating with people from other groups. Like, I'm not going to become something. I'm not going to completely change the way I dress, because I know it won't be happening.
Well, I mean, something like this has to be negotiated up front, because to you it's associated with a style of dress that's very different from what you are, and for him not to have a wife who goes that way is somewhat outrageous in his community. So if you can negotiate clearly all the lines beforehand, if he is as open-minded as he wants to say he is, maybe he's willing to accept that when you're inside the house, it doesn't matter whether you're wearing that tichel or not, is he then willing to open to who you are and what you are?
Right.
If he's not, then there's no basis for it. If he is, then there is.
I'm just wondering how realistic it is for people from different groups to even to begin to date, because at some point...
I'm from a totally different group from my wife. I was brought up in with a British education.
But she probably could mold to you. You're dealing with people who are like 20 years, you were 20 years younger.
She's a strong, powerful Persian girl who has a mind of her own. She will not accept what I say unless she has tested it and checked it out and heard the reasons for it. And she will not let me make up her mind on anything.
Okay.
And
we're talking about fundamental. Already, you met your guys, so you guys were already on the same page as far as Yiddishkeit. Not like, you know, not personality and stuff, but shkapa. And in the world of the dating world, we run into them all the time.
Great personality, you drive, but then on a day-to-day basis, can these two people really make it? I don't know.
And these things separate constantly like weeding out or separating or not making it.
On the other hand, you want to go, maybe. That you did. I mean,
one of the things that I negotiated with my wife up front before we agreed to marry was that we have completely open communication on everything. And I think that is absolutely of fundamental importance to have completely open communication, to accept that not always can you communicate at that moment, but that you're going to be willing to talk it through. I think that it's very important to the survival of any relationship to, I mean, you're not children, and you can be quite upfront. There are going to be times when we disagree with each other, and how we're going to cope with it. We have to cope with it, and you have to agree, and there's a condition of participation that we are going to discuss these matters. I mean, that is, I think, a very important thing for ensuring that the day-to-day is going to work. I mean, I do think that when people who are not children are negotiating marriage, that they have to try and negotiate everything that is important and to work out what is important to you beforehand, before going ahead.
You want to be flexible, but you also want to be true to yourself. You have to find that happy medium.
You must be. I mean, in fact, the mitzvah for man to marry is stronger than the mitzvah for a woman to marry, and you're not required to change who it's vital for you to be in order to be married. The most important thing is for you to be true to Hashem and to serve Hashem in your authentic way. And if there is a partner that you can, with flexibility, do that, then it's good. If it's going to choke you, then why go into it?
But can they decide they like you, who you are, and your personality more than hope she changes this, I hope she changes that? Like, maybe they're fooling themselves.
I think that what I'm saying by saying you cannot expect anywhere near 100% perfection is that we have to learn to accept the other party in the relationship for what they are with their imperfections, and not to expect.
Some of these are not imperfections. This is mishkafa. Not imperfections.
I think we're going to. I don't not want to answer you, and I'm willing to continue. But the event in the restaurant has to be drawn to conclusion very soon. We have a few more minutes. Well, let's just, if we can round up what I'm saying to you and anybody else who wants to join in, then my conclusion would be on matters hashkafa also to bring it up front to see how you can bridge or not. Was there anybody else who wanted to? Yeah.
I'd always heard that, each person wants to be hooked, and Hashem, spends all the time making Bugim, and Kabbalistically there's an idea that each person has seven possible Bugim, but please correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing from what you said tonight, that it's very possible that not everybody has a Bugim. So I just wanted to know how you...
Will you
repeat the question?
The question is whether a person has one zivug that God is constantly working to bring them to, or does the person have many zivugim, or what is the story here? And the answer is that it can be gleaned from something that Nachman himself says. He was married twice, and his first wife died about 3 or 4 years before he himself died. He wanted to remarry, and he was a young Hasidic Rebbe, and he was visiting a certain town, and no less than 20 people showed up, women in carriages who had been driven there to seek the Rebbe's hand, marriage as it were. And the Rebbe commented that these are all my zibugim. And the Rebbe said that the person has many zibugim and many potential